Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Woodard Report podcast. I am absolutely thrilled to have David Leary, my good friend David Leary, on our podcast today. Welcome, David.
Hey, Heather. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we kind of go way back. I think I met you in 2014. I remember. I know you don't remember, but I remember. 2014 at Scaling New Heights in San Antonio. It was my first Scaling New Heights conference. And I remember you being there, and I remember you talking about unicorn libations.
Yeah, that was like the first above all, like I was obviously going to conferences before that, but that was the first one where things really, I came up through the App Store. Things really started to tip. That's where things like cloud really tipped. Like it was just the vibe started to tip. The developers, I think it was the first time we threw a party. I had the unicorn mug and a sombrero, but that was that was an interesting conference. Plus, what I loved about that conference that Joe put on was that Marriott hotel, I think, was so far from everything. Everybody had to stay at the one property. You couldn't go anywhere. It was kind of like a prison, but not. But it actually was nice because everybody was at the same venue all the time for the full 3 days or 4 days, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and even now we're in Orlando. We've been in Orlando now. This will be our third year in a row, and we'll be there for the next 2 or 3 years at the Orlando World Center Marriott. And that's very similar to that property. It's got a water park. It's, obviously you can leave and go to Disney or anywhere else. So yes, it is not as remote as that was in San Antonio, but it is really nice to have a big conference space where everybody can be. So yeah, that was a fun one. That was a really fun one. I remember I had never been to a Scaling New Heights, and I remember I'd been to some other conferences, and this one I was just so much glitz and glam, and I was like, whoa! It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was our first time at the Intuit developer team. The first time we did a party for the developers and some VIP accountants. It was kind of the very start of, these huge accounting parties that just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger now. And then Xero and QuickBooks now close with these monster parties now, these conferences.
They do.
That was I feel like that conference was kind of the start of that. I think it was the first time at the time, I think T-Sheets had like a suite upstairs and like the security had to shut the party down. Like it was like, everything was still very like raw and not organized, but was rambunctious and well attended. Yeah.
Yeah. No, those were the days, right?
Yes, the days. We're aging ourselves now.
So what are you up to now? Obviously, you have the accounting podcast, which started as the Cloud Accounting Podcast. And how long have you been doing that? I mean, it's got to be...
Blake and I started that before I left Intuit in April of 2018.
Wow. Okay.
And we've done actually, we finally missed a week. I think the first week of December in 2025. But we recorded an episode every week for 5.5 straight years or 6 years or whatever we're at now. So 2018 till now, we've never missed a week. Every week we record. Now, sometimes we record on Thursday, sometimes a Friday, sometimes a Saturday, sometimes a Sunday, sometimes a Monday, but we do not skip a week. Never have.
That's incredible. That's incredible. I've had Appy Hour with Liz Scott and I do the podcast with Joe, and that's hard to do. It's hard to fit all that in and not miss a week. So kudos to you for never missing a week.
Well, the little story here for Blake's a millennial, and early on, Blake, we might have been 20 episodes in. I don't even know what it was. Not too far down the line, and Blake wanted to skip a week, and I just told him if we skip 1 week, we'll skip 2, and this whole thing is dead. And I didn't let him skip because I'm 10 years older. I was old and wise, I guess, right? And that made a big difference. And Blake was like, to this day, he's like, that's probably the number one success thing. We just show up and keep doing it.
Right. No, because you're right. It's with anything. As soon as you skip, you're right. You lose that momentum. So it is super important.
But if you want to start a podcast, listeners, do not do a weekly podcast.
It is a lot of work.
Do an every other week podcast. You do not want to do it weekly because I feel like every week I'm like, oh man, we got to ready for we record tomorrow. I got to ready for the show again. I'm like, we just recorded. Like you feel like you're constantly having to prepare for the next episode, and it's a lot of work because now we live stream our episodes. So your A game has to be on to like record live, and it's very mentally exhausting. A weekly podcast is a lot of work. Being somebody who's doing it, don't do a weekly podcast. Do every other week if you're interested. You always email me. I can give you other tips, but yeah, do it every other week. Podcast is the way to go.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, no, with Happy Hour, Liz and I do every other week, and Joe do it. Joe and I do it every week. But like when we do these interviews, like I was saying, well, it's usually just one or the other. So we'll
Let me
give
get
an
to break.
like a bye week for me or Joe.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's nice. So yeah. So what are the big things that are going on in the industry that you're seeing? I know I was just saying to you before we got started about, the 150-hour rule and how that's starting to go away. And I mentioned to you that if Rhode Island hadn't had, so when I was finishing my degree, it's my junior year of my undergrad degree, and the 150-hour rule went into effect, and I was not grandfathered in. The seniors were, but the juniors weren't. And so I actually didn't get my CPA until 2019 after I got my master's degree.
So how long of a gap did that force you to have?
15 years.
Wow.
15 years. And, it was interesting because I had taken the exam when I graduated. I took the exam and I passed. I'd worked in public for all of my career pretty much. And so I had all the hours, but I couldn't get that certificate, the license, because I didn't have the education hours. So when I finally did get my master's, in 2019, I remember calling the Board of Accountancy in Rhode Island. I'm like, so I took the exam back in 2003. And does that mean do I have to take it again? And they said no. They just like, here's your license.
Wow. Yeah. It's funny because it's, in a way, the industry itself historically has always been number of hours. Like how many billable hours. Then the education kind of was like, how many hours of education did you complete? It was never really based on your competency. Can you pass the test? Any of these types of things. And so the reflection of the way they judge people's work in the industry was exactly how they judge people with the exam. Right? But what we've seen is we did not create the destruction of the 150-hour rule, right? All we did was give it a voice. What happened with our podcast was it was water cooler conference talk, right? We'd hear stories, and we just help amplify the voice. And then we'd hear from state societies that say, oh, it's working, keep it up. Because there were some states like Minnesota that were a little bit more forward thinking about trying to eliminate this and have an alternative pathways. And obviously the AICPA fought against that pretty hard. And then that's actually kind of crazy. The second Barry Melanson retired, so January 1st of 2025, and then since then, so we're a year and a couple of weeks out, there's now 28 states that have passed legislation now for alternative pathways. And wow. they're almost all identical. So it's either a bachelor's degree with 2 years of experience, or you get the full 150 hours, an advanced degree with the 1 year of experience, and then pass the exam. So all these states have introduced alternative pathways, and we're seeing a ripple effect. Blake just covered on our podcast a couple of weeks ago. The numbers are starting to come out. Accounting graduates are increasing.
That's great.
Because now that that's not there, knowing you're not going to take 15 years to get this,
right?
More people are going to try to do it. And that's what we're seeing, an increase in accounting graduates. It's so obvious that there was a tie. This is a barrier to entry.
100%. And, I remember back in the day, professors, when I was in school, this was a big topic because all of us juniors and beyond were like, okay, well, we're going to have to do the 5-year plan or wait 15 years like I did. And that's exactly what they said, was that it was a barrier to entry because it was flooded and they were trying to protect it. So now they're deregulating because we're in the middle of a staffing crisis, right? So we need to fill that pipeline.
And I think it had unintended consequences too, where diversity in the profession, it affected that. And that bell went off for me. Really, I went to the National Association of Enrolled Agents, NAEA's conference, and I was shocked how diverse it was versus a typical AICPA accounting event. And the reason why is anybody could just study hard, take the test to become an EA. There was no college degree requirement. And because of that, you had all this diversity there. And these people have changed their lives because they were able to buckle down, study, learn something, and hang the shingle on the door and have a business. And that's where I was like, oh, this is the big difference. It's the barrier to entry is the college degree.
Right.
They're both qualified. There's a lot of EAs that know what they're doing just as well as any CPA knows what they're doing. The CPAs
100%.
listening may disagree with me, but like, let's be honest, like there's an equivalent.
David, I was an EA before I was a CPA. So, I graduated. When I graduated, I already had a family. That's why I didn't go on and do the extra year. I was like, I'm going to go work. But I got my EA, and I'll tell you something. That test was hard. That was a hard exam. So, you have to know what you're doing. You have to put the time and the work in to actually pass it. So, you don't want to mess with an EA. Having been an EA. So I have a lot of respect for them.
No, so that's been in the news, 150-hour rule. I mean, to some extent, we talked about it so much in 2023 and 2024 that our listeners started getting sick of it. But we just talk about what's in the news. It's finally kind of out of the news now.
Right.
The only time we mention it is when another state joins the list. And pretty soon we're going to be at 50 states that have all had alternative pathways. We're over halfway there now.
No, I think it's fantastic. The other thing is I actually just got a press release had released out that they're doing a lot in the education realm right now. So they've created a pilot curriculum in Utah, and they're putting students through it to teach them about the advisory and kind of the CAS.
Super familiar with that. The professor built that program. He was a listener of the podcast.
Oh, that's awesome.
He flew down to Tucson and met with me and Blake, and we sat at a bar, and I'm like, here's all the things your students need to know. And then that eventually became the curriculum. I'm like, no matter what, just have them get certified in QuickBooks and Xero. That's their worst case scenario is they drop out of school and they can get a job the rest of their life because of QuickBooks. Like,
they can.
That's the worst case scenario.
I will tell you, because I'm gonna push back on that a little bit, because I was a QuickBooks Pro Advisor before I got my degree in accounting, and I knew what to do. My mom's a CPA, so it's a little bit different. Well, I guess anybody worked it just because the CPA was my mom, I guess doesn't matter. But I knew what to do. But what I didn't know was why I was doing it. Right. So I was, I knew how to solve the problems. The computers came naturally to me. My brain kind of thought like a database anyway. So I could do the work, and she was explaining to me how, what to do, how to do it. But she never taught me through the practical application of why I was doing it, like the internal controls or, the importance of verifying source documents, which it's very different now because we're talking 90s, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that, learning the software is really important. And yes, it can do the heavy lifting. And now that we're with AI, it does even more of the heavy lifting. But I do think that there is an importance of really understanding the fundamentals too.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that I'm saying don't learn, but you just don't want to only get a certified QuickBooks. You have to learn the rest. You have to learn, but the fact that people were graduating college, and I hired two people myself. They both were accounting majors. One went and got her master's. She got like the 10th highest exam score in the CPA exam in Arizona that year. She never saw QuickBooks until she worked for me. And I had her do reconcile, and she just blew it. Like she didn't understand the concept of a reconcile. Like how can an accounting student go all the way through 4-year degree in accounting and be in the master's program and completely not understand the concept of a reconciliation?
Right.
Like what the purpose of it was, is she was just check marking. Like they didn't grasp the concept of like, oh, this is to make sure the money in the bank is exactly matches the accounting system or vice versa. It's just like the concept just wasn't there. And that's a failure of the school system. But if you're having them do a reconciliation in QuickBooks, now you have the opportunity to teach them that. Right?
Yes. No, absolutely. I mean, you need both. And which is why Intuit, launched their bookkeeping certification, which is amazing. It's really, really, really good. I've gone through it just to kind of see what it looked like and see how good it was. And I was very impressed with it. So
and that's like a separate program, right? Like you can just join and learn. Let's like learn to be a bookkeeper, and it teaches you everything, right? Is that?
It's in your Pro Advisor. You have to be a Pro Advisor. You have to have a Pro Advisor account to access it because it's built, as far as I understand it, and I'm looking at it through a Pro Advisor lens. It is for Pro Advisor. So if I decide I want to be one, I sign up for a Pro Advisor account, and I can go into the dashboard and I can take the bookkeeping certification.
Oh, I thought they had like a pre-training or a pre-class where they're taking people from scratch and teaching them to be a bookkeeper and then QuickBooks certified, et cetera. But maybe, and I imagine that's not in product. Like
the bookkeeping certification is in product.
That's in product. So they have to.
So I don't know if they have it outside of product somewhere. I mean, that's completely possible. Like I said, I'm looking at it through the ProAdvisor lens, and that's where I was able to go through the training
to see it and do it.
Yeah. But it was good. I mean, it was quality training. I thought it really was asking the questions like, okay, if I didn't already know this would be challenging. It would be teaching me what I need to know. So I felt like they did a really great job. That's so good. Now this new program that going into the universities, I think that's really exciting. And I agree with you, David, that like you get the theory, but you've got to have that practical application, because when you do come out of school, that's the school. That's one of the things that we hear from firm owners and leaders all the time is they don't have the practical knowledge, and this will give them a leg up.
I remember talking to ProAdvisors back in the day that were Intuit Trainer Writer Network, right? But they also maybe taught a class at community college or whatever it might be. And at the university, and I remember them saying like, oh, the university said I'm not allowed to teach QuickBooks. The community college was okay with it. And I'm like, this is insane. Like, it's like, oh, you're not allowed to teach them Excel? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's a tool that's being used in industry, and to not let somebody teach that seems a little insane to me.
Yeah. I wonder if it's because there were other applications out there, right? And so they couldn't show preferential. I don't know.
That stupid, everybody who took Accounting 101, 102 in the mid-90s, there's always a floppy disk in the back of the book, and it had some janky accounting system that the professor's brother made or something. You had to use that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, it's crazy. I'm excited to hear that there's more students coming out with accounting degrees. That's really exciting, and I hope that continues because they're definitely needed. And it is. It's a great. I mean, I've been in the profession for over 30 years now, which is crazy. But it's been a great ride. It's a great profession. It really is.
If they can remove the barrier to entry, and then if salaries can go up a little bit, and the work-life balance goes up a little bit, we will get a lot more accountants coming into the industry. So we've solved the 150-hour barrier to entry stuff. Salaries are coming up a little bit. I don't know if the work-life balance, especially at the top 10 big public accounting firms, is there yet.
Right.
I mean, but when that starts to happen, because a lot of that will be on Reddit, right? All these forums, and people just bash their big four jobs over and over again. And the work-life balance just isn't there yet still in the industry.
Yeah. It's funny because where going to the conferences and kind of the circle that you and I are in, we're seeing a lot of strides in that, right? Firms are really pushing for that, but we're a very small percentage of the greater profession.
Yeah. Right? It's easy to get we think the whole world's like that. And you realize oh no, this is just like the 2,400 forward-thinking people. The rest of the country, the rest of the industry is not like that.
It's exactly right. And, Liz and I, when we're talking about certain things we have to level set. We're like, wait a minute. So this is the way we think, but most of the profession's not thinking this way. So I have a question for you with, we're talking about the greater profession is not quite as far along as as you said, the 2,400 of us that are kind of like pushing things forward. How about AI? What do you think is going on with AI and the profession? Because right now, everybody in our 2,400, our little community, we're all in, right? Everybody wants to know about it. Everybody wants to be, playing with it, touching it, figuring out what works and what doesn't. What about the rest of the accountants?
At some level, it's failing, right? A lot of people are experimenting. There's lots of rolled out experiments. People are spending on the tech, but they're not getting successful results. And it's a couple of things. One of it is just the AI itself. It's just not ready. And I've insisted. The other day, I had to upload an invoice to some vendor portal. Arguably, that is bookkeeping, right? I need to get paid for my company. And the hoops I had to jump through, and I did a big, long LinkedIn post, it's like 40 things. And my hypothesis is AI is never going to be able to do bookkeeping. That's bookkeeping. Matching a bank feed is not bookkeeping. If AI can do that, but that's not bookkeeping. This notion that it's going to replace bookkeeping and accounting is really crazy. It's just not going to happen because there's just too many variables. And then, people argue, well, once they all have AI and you have AI and the AIs will talk to each other, I'm like, give me a break. So now everybody has to have the same, it's like the olden days when those little message phones, everybody had to save the same Brad phone. Or AOL chat, you can only talk to other AOL chat people. It just doesn't, that's never happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've seen initiatives with some of our vendors, like Intuit. They did that business network, right? Which I don't know if it's taken off and everybody loves it, but I don't think so. I haven't heard much about it since they launched it.
I think maybe 2 of my customers / vendors I use it with.
Right.
Once you're connected, it's great. You get paid instantly. It's awesome. But like, I just have a lot of unopened invites or
Yeah.
whatever. They never opened it. They never connected. The connection was never
Right.
made. Like, to get everybody to opt into some magic AI accounting systems that talk to each other, it's going to be a very, very long time, like 40-year timeline. Like, we'll be dead before it happens. It's going to be a very long time. But I think one thing Blake always says that makes a lot of sense. What AI really does is it exposes firms with bad processes. Right. So if you don't have a good process already in your firm for moving data through or work through your firm with checks and balances and making sure the work's getting done, if you just roll in AI in some part of that, it's going to fail. But if you have if you have everything documented and processed out, you can take out one piece and be like, hey, we're going to replace this one piece of our process with AI. Oh, and I think this piece over here could be replaced by AI. But if you don't have that, people are they don't have documented processes, they don't have systems, and then they're just trying to roll out AI to do everything. And that's just not possible. It can do small, very focused jobs decently well, but you have to supervise it.
Right.
We covered a story about 2 weeks ago. Have you ever heard of SaaStr?
No.
So SaaStr is like a community blog site for SaaS founders, software as a service founders. But the founder of that, essentially that business itself is a SaaS business in a weird way, right? So when he discovers things, he tends to blog about it and talks about it. So they apparently have rolled out 60 AI agents at their company, lots doing sales and other stuff. But what's happened is you as a manager have the same amount of work. So you used to manage people, and maybe you had to spend 20 hours a week managing people, supervising their work, making sure they're doing their work, correcting their work. When you have AI, you're going to do the same thing. You as the manager are not going to have less work. You have to do the same amount of verification, babysitting. But the difference is, instead of you managing 20 employees over here, your 20 AI employees might be working 24 hours a day. But you're not going to save any time or work. You might get a stronger ROI, but we're not going to be able to stop working and not babysit this. And that was their observation. So as a manager, you can replace all your employees as AI, and you as a manager are going to have the exact same amount of work, cognitive load, right? You're going to have the same amount of work to do.
Yeah, I mean, for the manager, yes, right. But it is going to replace the data entry folks, right? And it is already replacing the data entry folks. So the folks that were clicking on the computers, gone, right? It's kind of like the toll booth workers. I remember in Rhode Island, right near where I lived, we have a bridge that goes across onto Aquinic Island, and first it was we actually have 3 bridges. First, there was one bridge, and that happened probably about 15 years ago. They took the bridge down and they actually got rid of the toll. The second one was now the Newport Bridge is our big bridge. They started that process, and now you don't have. I mean, even the tolls, we have Easy Pass, and some, if you go down the Jersey Turnpike, you still have the option to pay in cash, but eventually that's going to go away. They're doing pay by mail, so it's the same. It's the same thing, right?
I mean, there's an evolution, right? Yeah. At one time, somebody had to stand on the elevator and push the buttons for you.
That's right.
Right. And so, yes, there's an evolution, and pieces of the job will go away. But this like flat out, like the sky is falling, it's going to take all your jobs is probably baloney. I think.
It's going to change our jobs. It's going to
change our jobs. The big misnomer that I think people are wrong on, and is this, everybody's on this hammer, it's going to help you not do compliance and be able to do advising. You know what AI is really good at? Taking the raw data and creating a summary. Like, AI is going to be doing the advising work, the compliance, and making sure the data is correct. That's going to be a human thing still.
Agreed.
I don't think I think it's the complete opposite. Like, you're going to use AI for the advising. Like, if you think AI is going to do all your data entry and the bookkeeping, all you're going to do is come in as the advisor and tell the story, I think it's completely opposite. AI is really good at taking the data and creating a story, because if you look at the data, the story today could be A, tomorrow it could be A, but slightly different. It doesn't have to be exact. But that receipt for Starbucks has to be exact 100 days in a row. You can't have sometimes AI doing this, sometimes AI doing this.
That's right.
But advisory can be wishy-washy. It doesn't have to be perfect. It could use these words this day and these words this day. And AI is really good at advisory and compiling and summarizing data. It's really good for that.
It is good for summarizing. It's good for formatting data, right? So, I'm a ChatGPT person, but I'm amazed by what it's able to do. And in the time frame of it went to really crappy to actually really good was very short. I mean, in the 3 years or 3.5 years now that I've really been digging in and using it, there's a long time where it was really bad. And then all of a sudden it was like, wow, this is really cool. Like now it can format, like it can add my branding to a Word document. Like it can do things that, that it couldn't do, and it does it well. So I have it, it really is changing our knowledge level. And yes, we used to Google, we used to have to go to the library. Now we just have to ask. And what I will tell people though, and I say it all the time, it's still a liar. It still has a bad day where everything it knows goes out the window. So if you are relying on it to be correct every day, you are going to get burned.
Yeah. And you have to, and I've used it to write ads, and unfortunately, like it overtrain, no matter what they say about like, oh, we're not going to train on your data to the models. I do not believe that. Like it basically, hey, I want an ad that's like this, and we start writing the ads, and the ad would just say like some app works with QuickBooks. I'm like, I don't think the app works with QuickBooks. Then I go research. I'm like, it doesn't work with QuickBooks. Why did it put that sentences? Because I've done it in 40 other ads. Like we've been bit by that. Another example we've been bit by it is we didn't have a good report export, and it would just be like this horribly formatted thing. And I was like, oh, I could try to play with Excel to get it to format into a table, or I could just put it through AI. And it was kind of, we were proud, like, look at this. It saves me time. I just give it the raw JSON file and it makes a nice table. And then we'd send those to our customers. And the customer's like, this is great, but that podcast right there with those, I never made that. It just made up a podcast and made up data and put it in the table as a row. And that's where these human checks on everything has to be there, because
it does.
It really is. It's a bad employee. It is not a great employee. It's a fast employee. It's a high volume employee, but it's not a great employee.
If you're an expert and you're diligent, right, and you're not gonna, and you have an analytical mind, right, it's awesome. It's awesome. And that, like you said, the managers you're managing, you're able to know when it's wrong, right? You recognize that, and that's why I think even with the advisory, I think that it's going to be a while. I think that eventually, it could get there, and definitely in simple cases, it's dead on, right? I actually use it. Gosh, I use it to ask things about my horses. I'll use it to ask things about, how I'm feeling. Like I've asked it for medical advice, and that's where I can get in trouble, right? Because I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I'll use it for barbecue and smoking meats and things like that, because I have a very high variance for errors when you're smoking and doing barbecue. You're in hours of journey. I won't use it for baking, because if it just invents one extra ingredient like salt, you need a 1/4 tablespoon of salt, and you're not supposed to have any salt in there. You've completely ruined whatever it is you're baking. Right. So I think you have to trust it depending on the risk and the timeline you have. And I think the barbecuing or smoking is a good example of that.
That is a good example.
If I ask again, and the answer it gives me slightly different, well, that's great. I still have 6 more hours to work around that. But right. if you put the cookies in the oven, 10 minutes later, you pull them out and it had a number wrong, you're done. Those cookies are toast at that point, or baked, or whatever, cooked, whatever the slang term we should be using from these young kids these days.
For baking things?
Yeah. When it's ruined, I guess you're cooked, right?
Yeah, like
those
cookies
are cooked.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. That's so funny. Well, it's definitely the Wild West out there, and I sound like a broken record because I think I say that on every podcast episode about AI. It's the Wild West, but that's certainly how it feels. And some days it feels like we're in a circus.
And some days it does amaze you. Like, we wanted to offer our employees health insurance this year, and wanted to create a survey for it. And I literally spent 3 minutes on it. Mm-hmm. Went to Google Forms, typed in, hey, I want to make a healthcare survey. I don't know what I should put in it. What are the questions? It created the Google Is it Google? It's called Google Forms, right? Yeah, Google Forms.
It's
I
Google
created the
Forms.
whole thing, spun the whole thing up, sent it to employees. I literally spent 3.5 minutes on the
That's
thing.
amazing. Yeah.
And so now it's a survey, right? And so it could have done it differently tomorrow and still got us to the same point because it doesn't have to be perfectly exact, right? And so it works for a lot of things like that. But like I said, it does bite me a lot. I get bit by it all the time.
Yeah. No, it does. It definitely does. There's times if you're not paying attention and you let your guard down, you're going to get burned. No doubt about it. So what other big things do we need to be paying attention to? We hear about PE, we hear about mergers and acquisitions. Like, what are we
PE
doing
is this, that might be the scariest thing in accounting. And the reason why is, or maybe I'll rewind. The reason the bell went off this for me. So when Citron Cooperman got purchased by, was it Blackstone? No.
I think it was Blackstone, then they got purchased by somebody else.
Blue Mountain, it was somebody, yeah. It was the largest PE deal in the accounting industry. And for some reason, a music blog picked it up. And so I went down the rabbit hole. Why is the music industry covering the largest private equity deal ever in the history of accounting? This is almost 12 months ago now, right? When this deal went through. Yeah. Well, it turns out Citron Cooperman years ago purchased a smaller accounting firm that was the number one accounting firm for music catalog valuations.
Oh.
This PE company happens to own billions of dollars of music catalogs. They were buying all these music catalog companies. They own, like, don't quote me because I don't remember the news. Like, maybe they own the Who or the David Bowie catalog. They own all that music. Well, now they own the accounting firm that tells you how much that music is worth. That is not okay. That is not okay. We've seen situations where BDO, the appearance of independence did not exist because they had the private equity company owned one of the companies BDO was auditing, and that company had a failure. It failed and went bankrupt. And so there's a disconnect, right? Or we're seeing just recently last week, private equity put an investment into an accounting firm, and this private equity company just happens to own as investments in basically the tech stack of accounting firms. Like, so proposal software, AI tax software, client portal type software. So they own, and so of course they're going to tell people you have to use our software, our other investments, and that's the conflict of interest. And not a lot of people get it, but I'll put this in an easy way for the listeners of this podcast to get, because I imagine it's a lot of QuickBooks. Intuit has an investment arm called Intuit Ventures. Imagine if Intuit Ventures started buying accounting firms and forced them to buy QuickBooks. That's what we're seeing. We're seeing this over and over again. And this is really the analogy I would give also is Red Lobster, a private equity company that owned shrimp companies, bought Red Lobster and then made Red Lobster sell all you can eat shrimp so they could sell more shrimp. Like, these are the conflict of interest, which maybe are not conflicts in other businesses, but for accounting, they probably are. And that's what scares me.
Because it's assurance, right? You're right. It wouldn't be a conflict for another business. That's just another acquisition. It's a strategy, right?
It's a strategy, exactly.
You acquire in order to expand your market. But, with accountants, if we're providing assurance services, then we have an issue, right?
Yeah, you should try to be independent. And I think nobody's going to like that, right? Nobody wants to be told you must use these software apps. You must use this because we invested in it.
I don't know that I agree with that, because as a practitioner, my clients, sometimes they cared, but very rarely. They were like, just tell me what to use. Like, with larger companies, it's a totally different story, right? But with small businesses, they don't know. And they want you to make it easy. They want you to prescribe, right? They want you to write a prescription and say, here's the things you need, do it. I got your back.
But hopefully you're recommending to them what is best for them.
Oh, hopefully you're recommending.
Not because you own these apps, these companies, you have a financial position in the things you're recommending. Imagine if doctors are like that. If doctors were owned by the drug companies and then they were going to only prescribe to you what their owners tell them to prescribe. And that's the situation. That's the issue, the conflict.
definitely something to be paying attention to for sure, and especially depending on the types of services that you're offering, and also, you know, when you're getting into privacy with technology, privacy, are they SOC 2 compliant, things like that. Definitely you've got to pay attention. Well, this has been awesome, David. It's been way too long since we've had a chance to hang out.
Since I've been on, it's been I feel like it's been years since I've been on.
Yeah. So thank you for coming on. This has been a really, really fun and insightful episode. So
thanks for having me, and say hi to Joe for me.
I will. All right. Take care. All right, everybody. We'll see you next time.